Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth webinar in the webinar series of the Center for Professional Selling at Ball State University. Thank you for tuning in. Over the last couple of sessions we've actually had a marketing professor come and talk about how marketing is increasingly contributing and helping salespeople. That is, marketing is becoming the new sales. We followed that up with actually talking to an expert on the concept of what marketing automation is. So people talk a lot about inbound marketing and all those kinds of terms. So a way by which you could make that happen is through tools like marketing automation. And what we were informed was that marketing automation is apparently not a tool, but it's a complete set of an ideal and strategy that an organization needs to have in place. So we're picking up and building on it to get more into what marketing automation concretely does. And to help us do that, it's an absolute pleasure of mine to introduce one of my ex-students who's gone on to do much better things, Eline Arkens, who is based out of Belgium, but I'll actually let her introduce herself. Eline, if you could just briefly introduce yourself, what is it that you do, where do you work for, and how did you get into this job?
Hi Deva, nice meeting you again. It's been a long time see. I'm Eline, I work at Lead Fabric. We are a Brussels-based, but actually global agency that work in marketing automation, but also digital marketing, anything that has to do with digital strategy and demand generation. We go from technical to business consultancy, but mainly marketing. Marketing automation.
Well, so essentially, indeed. So, and how did you find yourself in a digital marketing, digital sales agency?
How did I end up here?
Yeah.
Well, it's network.
Network, yeah.
Via people who know each other, and it was a last-minute decision for me to start working here, but I have not yet regretted it at all. I actually wanted to go into sales, because you can tell so lovingly about it, but as you say, marketing is the new sales, sales is the new marketing. It's all very intertwined, and if you don't combine both departments, you're gonna nowhere with your campaigns, and sales is gonna be frustrated as well. So it's not so illogical to end up in marketing and automation if sales is your passion.
All right, let's jump right into it, Eline. One of the things that I talk a lot about in my class is the concept that there's work by corporate executive board that says 57% of buyers today make their buying decision before they talk to a sales rep. Increasingly, which means that marketing is taking more of an active role in actually helping create demand. And I actually had an expert come and talk to me about the demand waterfall, right? And that's something that a lot of people now talk about, the demand waterfall. But can you actually tell us a little bit more about demand waterfall, and where does marketing automation fit into it?
Absolutely. It's a very interesting concept. And the latest version is actually called the demand unit waterfall, which overall, as made by Series Decisions, it represents a transformational shift for B2B marketeers, changing the perspective from individual leads to buying groups, and how we need to match their behavior with their needs and our solutions as a company. Today, there are no more linear buying processes. That's a core concept. Instead, we recapture and we would retarget leads as they go back and forth in their sales funnel, in the buyer journey. Before, leads to move from awareness to consideration to decision, that was the only way they could go, and there was no going back. But as soon as a deal is closed for the company, that doesn't yet mean that I am to leave the marketing funnel. So do I leave the radar of my sales rep as soon as I buy something? I hope not. And in the demand unit waterfall, we actually look beyond this singular process, and we start also to look at demand units, how we can attract, engage, and track this demand. So we go from target demand to active demand, all the way to the pipeline to the closed lead. But people can move forward, but they can also go backward. So we look at these demand units, so group of people who are buying, so the relationship in between those groups, the resources that they have, as well as we try to fit the need that they have with the solution that we provide. So the urgency of and the fit of the need with the solution.
Wow. So
And
essentially what you're saying then is that in the past we had the sales funnel, but now you have the marketing funnel, but the marketing funnel has moved on from just one individual in the customer's organization, but actually multiple people in the customer's organization, which could have been the critique from salespeople in the past because of the fact that there's not just one person making a decision, which marketing automation would actually have helped. But right now you have to deal with multiple people, and I really is very interesting that you talk about it's no longer linear, but you can actually go back. So I'm assuming that if you suddenly have new people coming into your buying unit, then you might have to go back and see whether these people and how we help these people as well progress down the marketing funnel. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And also where marketing automation comes in, as it's one of those tools that can help you to target and nurture a specific group of leads or specific group of accounts, of markets, according to their needs. And these needs are identified in the buyer journey. This is a strategy thinking that you do up front. And once you have defined your buying group, a marketing automation platform can help you to effectively target those by setting up dedicated streams in which these specific groups can enter, leave, but re-enter again.
Wow, well, indeed, that's good. So I've heard about the demand waterfall, but now thanks to you, now I know it's the demand unit waterfall, which I think makes logical sense given the fact that complex B2B buying decisions are not made by one individual, but by actually a group of individuals who actually make it happen. Great. So you talked about the fact that yes, demand waterfall is out there. It's become demand unit waterfall. Marketing automation can help look at that. But one of the things that I heard from your colleague earlier was that marketing automation can help in generating leads, right? Now, can you explain to me how it actually helps in generating leads?
Lead generation is a term that we would rather say demand generation instead.
Great. Okay,
because lead generation can imply multiple things. You could say, do you want to generate prospects into customers, so sales qualified leads, or do you want to go from anonymous visitors to your first known lead in the database? So you have multiple stages, and it only depends on what the lead is. Is it the first known lead, or is it sales qualified lead in a further stage? So we would rather say demand generation. And then again, it comes down to the same thing, how to attract and keep leads interested in your products. So that they fall in love with your product so much that they don't want to buy from anyone else. So to create that demand, what you need is, first of all, a good product or service, but also you need a message that is right, that is relevant. You need to send it through the right channel. You need to adapt to the needs of your prospects. It has to be personalized, the message. It has to be adequate to the buyer stage in which they find themselves. It has to be sent at the right time. So this is all very demanding. And if you do not automate that process, you're going to lag behind on the messaging.
That's interesting. So essentially what you're saying is that you need to automate it, but you need to have a very clear idea about what that journey is going to be and what stage of that journey, what message should be brought in. But of course, once you know that, then you can automate it. Am I correct in understanding you that it's just not about the if I can go back and link it to what I heard from your colleague earlier in the previous webinar, is that you need to understand the customer journey or the demand unit's journey, and understand that you need to have that, and in different stages you need to provide different content. But once you know how it progresses, then you can automate that. Am I correct in understanding that?
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes. You cannot start automating content nor people within the processes if you do not know whom you're talking about and what you want to say.
Indeed.
So strategy always comes first. You need to have a main body or message that you want to say, and then you need to start looking, okay, but do those people also want to receive that message? Maybe they want to be targeted a different way, but you need to have that strategy first before you start implementing everything.
Fantastic. Actually, this brings me to my next question, because everything that you're talking about is talking about digital right now, right? So essentially we're talking about emails and Twitter and social media and everything else. So how is the rise of digital media critical for marketing automation to be successful?
That's a really good question, because both are very intertwined, and one who could not have existed without the other, actually. Because on the one hand, people now have multiple channels via which they can communicate with their peers, but also with companies and brands. So you need to be in contact with your clients, your prospects, your partners on all those channels, but of course not at the same time. If I download the white paper, does that mean that I want to be cold right away? Probably not. So you need to sort of see where people are in their buying stage or in the sales funnel to know what type of channel you need to use. But you need to be aware that there are multiple channels to reach your prospects. On the other hand, the rise of digital media has also caused other enterprises to start communicating through all these channels. So you're not the only one out there. That implies that your customers are daily targeted with millions, trillions of messages. They see more than 1,000 brand images a day. If you want to stand out of the clutter, you need to be relevant with what you're saying, because your customer's attention really is the scarcest resource there is. And lastly, I would even say that because of all the data and because of all the channels that there are, you cannot leave each channel responsible of their own data management, and you need to centralize that in one tool, one platform. Marketing automation could be that platform where you centralize the data of your leads.
So what I hear from you, again, it goes back to, yes, you have new technologies doing what people used to do in the past, but the idea still is that have a very clear communication strategy, and then that communication strategy has to be in line with your strategy and how the customer is buying. And once you know these two things, then you can then start playing around with what is the best way to reach. And if you want to centralize all that, marketing automation could be a way of actually helping you with that as well. Am I correct in understanding that?
Yeah, absolutely correct.
So which actually brings me, so we talked about lead generation, and you said something along the lines of sometimes the customers might progress down the funnel, but then they have to go back. And sometimes this happens, right? So
yeah,
indeed, so I hear the term lead nurturing come up. Now, to what extent can you talk about lead nurturing, and how is that relevant in the marketing automation space?
Lead nurturing is probably one of the core elements of marketing automation. It's a process of developing relationships with potential buyers or actual buyers at every stage of their sales funnel and through every step of their journey. It focuses on marketing and communication efforts, on listening to the needs of your prospects and providing information that they're looking for. So lead nurturing, in fact, facilitates your buyers to get to know your business. You could compare it with the necessary courtship before marriage. You're not going to go right into the contract. You need to get to know each other first. With lead nurturing, you actually spend time establishing that relationship. You build trust because you have relevant messages and you show your client that you know what you're talking about and you know what they want to hear. And as a result, when you communicate with your buyer, they are welcoming to what you say. It's not like the cold calling of the old days that people just hang up the phones because, no, I do not want to talk to you. It's not like that awkward first date. It's not full of mistrust and hesitation. So that's actually the core of marketing automation.
Indeed. But it's interesting because you talk about, but then, Eileen, my question to you is that, but that's what salespeople used to do in the past, right? So what you're saying is that in the past, salespeople would do that. So to what extent should salespeople be concerned that this lead nurturing, which they used to do in the past, forget cold calling, I understand about cold calling, but salespeople, once you go past that, the idea was to provide relevant information to the buyer. So to what extent should salespeople be concerned, or should they be looking at it as a great opportunity for them to serve their customers better?
It's a great opportunity, not just because I work in this industry, I say that, but it really is. If marketing automation is implemented and performed well, it will only help and not take over the jobs of salespeople, because marketing now will only send the best, in marketing terms, the hottest leads to sales. And then they know this is someone that I really need to target, that I really need to talk to, and they will have all the information in the back end. And the reason why we know that that person needs to be contacted, and because I'm not saying that salespeople don't know whom they should contact, but the reason why marketing automation is much more clear is that we work with those nurturing, as you say, and the difference with, for instance, drip campaigns, as was done before, is that drip campaigns are static. It's just at a regular cadence, at a regular pace of time. We send out massive blast messages to people, and we do not target, we just send out, we just vomit words, you could say. It's what we used to call spam. But with nurturing, we target the groups up front. We know who to target. We know what message to send. We set up these streams from which they can evolve or devolve. And then once a lead has reached a particular stage, we know this is sales ready. And then we only help actually salespeople with doing a bit more of the work. But then, of course, a sales deal, we leave to them. Yeah. So it's more that the hardest work is taken up by marketing automation.
Yeah, but it's very interesting, because I really think all that salespeople used to do in the past can become much more efficient. Because if I'm a salesperson, in the past I would go carry my brochures and everything else to every different customer. But if now I can reduce my travel time, even my travel time, because I only have to visit those customers who are ready, that saves me time. But it also means that I can go visit a customer, and if I don't have time to go back and visit the customer, from what I understand you saying, then I can go back and keep the customer warm, even though I'm physically not visiting. So from if I can build up on what you said, it's just not about the salespeople getting the accurate leads, but sometimes you go to a lead, if the sales cycle time is long, I can then still send relevant details to my customers, even though potential customers, even though I don't have the time to visit them because I'm busy with something else. So I think if I understanding, I can extend it to help salespeople increase their ability to sell. That's interesting. So, well, you mentioned something about being sales ready, and I guess you nurture them, but there should come a point where you know that enough nurturing, now it's time for the marriage, as you put it, for the wedding dance to begin. So we hear the term lead scoring. Can you elaborate a little bit more on lead scoring and how it works?
Of course. Lead scoring is a crucial part of lead nurturing. Marketing and sales need to get together to develop a lead scoring system before they start implementing lead nurturing streams or lead nurturing programs. You need to pinpoint when and where a particular lead is within the brand's buying model. So to understand, you need to identify when and how to address each buyer and when the time is right. So you will do that based on a couple of factors. You will look at, for instance, industry, niche, and unique audience to see who you're looking at. And then you need to look at 4 elements, in fact. The first is the lead fit. You will look at demographics, thermographics, band, budget, authority, need, and time to define the basic sort of identity pass of your lead. The second would be the lead interest. Lead interest is on a very broad level. You track online behavior. Before, when someone came to the store and you saw them looking at a product, you know, oh, there is lead interest. But now they're behind a computer. How do you know if someone's interested? Well, you have cookies, you have tracking links. You can engage with your people on social networks. All that, the online behavior can be followed. And based on that, you can see how ready someone is. Then you have lead behavior. And lead behavior goes a bit deeper than lead interest, and you will really see what they're clicking on. For instance, if they click on a blog post, that can be valued higher or if they're registering for a webinar, that's a better example. If they register for a webinar, that's a higher score you could give than if they just click on a blog post, because going for a webinar implies that you really want to listen to what they have to say. A blog post you can scroll through. And then the last item that really should be looked at is the buying stage and the timing. You will attach a higher score to clicks on pricing sheets than on product demos. So based on these 4 elements, you can give your leads, depending on what they do and who they are, you can give them scoring. And as soon as they reach a particular level, and this is something that you set up and define up front, for instance, score 50, just a random number now, then you know, okay, this person's sales ready. And then you pass them on to the sales rep.
Yeah, and when you said you have the 4 stages that you talked about, right? And I guess each one of them has a different weighting in terms of importance than the other. Is that correct? So, for example, if I say if they've come to my website, of course, interest is weighted differently than actually them taking the level of time to actually look at your stuff. So I'm assuming there's also a weighting for each one as well to get to the final score of 50. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you're okay.
You can give different scores even to let's say you would like to see the activity of chief marketing officers who are in the IT sector, but you prefer to first look at chief marketing officers. If they are both, they will get a double score. If it's just someone who's a chief marketing officer but not in the IT sector, they can still get a score, but because they're not in the right industry, they will get a lower score. So you can play with it as much as you want.
To be honest, I think this really makes me think that marketing is a new sales and sales is a new marketing, is because it makes a lot of sense, because you cannot have marketing do this if they do not work together with sales, or if they have not been in sales themselves. Because if you do not know how this usually works, because essentially this is what sales used to do in the past, you're just actually taking what was a typical sales process in the past and making it more into marketing, but the idea is to help sales anyway. That's the way I look at it. And fantastic. Actually, one of the questions I get a lot in my class is that is marketing automation only for lead nurturing with potential leads, or can we also use marketing automation with your existing customers? And I heard one of your colleagues, Kuhn, in the past talk about how the typicals, you have the pyramid of customer portfolio and how you need to invert it sometimes, and he talked about target account marketing or account based marketing. Can you shed some more light on that, what account based marketing is about?
Yes, and also to sort of connect your two questions, because you asked also whether it can be done on existing clients.
Yeah.
Even if you work with account based marketing is also for prospects. It can be for prospect, it can be for existing, it can be for partners, resellers. You can target practically anyone as long as you have their data. But sometimes you don't have their data. So that's also what account-based marketing can help with. B2B, to first explain the concept maybe of account-based marketing, ABM, is that often B2B marketers, they try to cast a very wide net of their marketing campaigns in hopes of appealing to as many companies as possible in their target market. But as I told before, these are drip campaigns and they are regarded as spam. So account-based marketing, ABM, is an alternative B2B strategy that concentrates sales and marketing resources on a clearly defined set of target accounts within a market, and then employs personalized campaigns to resonate with each account. So often you don't even know who those accounts are. You just know that I want to target the top 50 companies in that market. And I have 3 in my portfolio, but 47 I don't yet have. And then account-based marketing can help. And how does it work? You need actually to know 3 key terms. It's about identification, marketing, and measurement. And that's where identification is important if you don't know the leads yet. You need to know who you want to target. And based on a ideal group, you can create a sort of dummy group via which in social media you can attract them and make sure that they enter your platform and your database.
Wow, this is really, really cool. So I guess my understanding of it was that you could always also use this, because if people self-select and they do it, then of course you can put them in your base. But if they're already existing customers, then it's easier, right? Because you know for sure who's that particular person you're talking to need. So that sort of makes sense as well. Now, you know what, if I listened to what you've said right now, marketing and sales working together, you need to have digital media, you need to have multiple channels, you need to work together, sales and marketing need to be aligned. I mean, you didn't specifically say it, but I guess from all that you're saying, that's what I'm gleaning. And absolutely. I've also heard that you need to have a clear digital strategy, a savvy team, and all of this costs money. And if I look at it from that perspective, most organizations, when times go difficult, when things are difficult, the first thing that gets cut is marketing budgets. So my question to you is that I'm assuming that one of the questions that you face a lot when you work together is what is going to be the return on investment, the ROI, and how would a firm that wants to invest in marketing automation to help generate leads, demand generation, how would they look at calculating their ROI?
Yeah, good question. And to even add to that, marketing budgets are often cut, but we do see in recent studies that the investment in marketing automation tools and the technology is on the rise. So that in itself already shows a sort of tendency in the market that They do not want to market in the dark anymore. People and companies are interested in the technologies that can show what actually happens with your campaigns and your efforts when you set up campaigns. So the technology is much more invested in. And a marketing automation platform, for instance, one of those technologies, the most important one in marketing. If you look at return on investment, the return, it depends on what you see as return. Is it the time you save because you implement such a platform? But most importantly, it would probably be the money that it brings in, which means as soon as you have a new client. So if you would look at the campaigns and the programs that people go through before they became a client, within marketing automation, not everything can be tracked, but it can know when your newest client, when he became a known lead in your database. So you can track the first touch point. You can also track the end touch point, the moment that gave the final go for him to decide, yes, I want to buy your product or service. And from hindsight, in marketing automation, you can attribute a particular percentage to that first touch point, to the end touch point, to all the programs and campaigns that came in between. And as such, you can see what was most effective. And you can see how many leads a particular program or campaign generated. And you can see, okay, this one, it only costed us that much money because it was so much to get the copy. It was so much to have the agency build it, for instance. But we generated about 5 new clients out of it. So in the end, it does require some calculating, and there are tools within marketing automation as well as tools outside that you can sync with your marketing automation to generate those percentages and to sort of generate the return on investment to see how effective campaigns were.
So one of the biggest issues there, of course, is that when you have the integration, you need for this to say I can identify when they became a lead and when they actually became a customer for them to get the revenues out. But a lot of time that information goes into the CRM system, and a lot of times marketers don't have a very clear view on how things go into the Salesforce, into the Salesforce automation and what comes out. So we hear things like, okay, since we don't have a clear visibility on what we are actually able to produce, they are now talking about things like cost per lead, where they start comparing what is it going to cost us per lead if you use a Salesforce as against this. When I mean cost per lead, I'm talking about that lead that is ready to be handed over to sales. Is that something that can also be used in the calculation for an ROI?
Absolutely. It depends on what you want to calculate. Do you want to calculate the cost per client, the cost per first lead, how much? Because also in some platforms, the cost, the investment of the platform, it depends on how big your database is. So then it indeed depends on the cost per lead, because the bigger your database, the more you're going to pay for your platform. But the more effective you use the platform, the better the investment in the end will be as well, because you have a higher return. But as you said, Deva, that's so true. The CRM integration, it's very important. And this is the core, I think, as well, because there are many cores. I said nurturing is the core, and ABM is the core. But in fact, if sales and marketing are not aligned at the start when they set up the strategy, and if CRM is not integrated with your marketing automation platform, there is not going to be any return because you just can't calculate it. Well, there will be a return, but you won't know where it comes from. You won't know how effective it was. And then the whole idea of having those platforms is just to little avail.
Well, Aline, thank you so much for the time. So that's all the time we have today, but I'm sure that we'll have a chance to exchange more ideas going forward. Thank you very much for taking your time off on a Friday afternoon to talk to us. We really appreciated the effort that you've taken to help us understand what marketing automation is. And again, thank you very much. For the audience, thank you again for tuning in. And feel free to touch base with us in case you have specific questions or if you need to get in contact with the speakers today. Thank you very much for your time.